Hi guys, Jim here. And today I want to talk some of you out of starting a business, and I'm going to tell you why. So let me give you a background. I've been in business for 40 years, different types of business, primarily an IT business, which, by the way, I think IT businesses are one of the hardest businesses to start and maintain and grow. There's other businesses that aren't as hard, but it worked for me and I loved it and I still do it. I own an e-commerce site, I own real estate, I do a lot of different businesses, and I've always been in business since I was a kid in elementary school, where I sold tadpoles for the price of a lunch and made lots of money as a kid. But there's a lot going on in starting a business that you may not be aware of, and we're going to talk about that today. So I already told you about my background, and some of the things that I did. I made lots of mistakes in starting a business. A lot of things that if I had to do over again, I'd do differently. And I hope today I can tell you about my mistakes, about my successes, and I want to focus on two of my former employees. One succeeded phenomenally. He's a multimillionaire, and he's a great guy. I really like him. And the other one failed phenomenally. And I'm hoping that if you listen to this video, I can point you in the right direction as to how to start a business that's successful. Because no one wants to start a business that's not successful, right? I'm going to tell you what I learned, but I'm also going to tell you about the tales of two cities almost, of two separate people, and what they did and how they started their business or failed at their business in one case. So let's start with a person who had started a business. He worked for me for about 10 years. He's a good guy, basically good guy. How's that? He did not like customers, which is strange, because customers are the people who pay for your training, your health insurance. They're the ones that give money for your salary. But he did not care for customers. He was not customer warm and fuzzy type of guy. In fact, a lot of times he would come back to the office and say, "Oh, this customer is stupid." And I'd say, "Look, don't ever call my customer stupid. First of all, the one you're complaining about is a CPA. He really knows what he's doing. Now, you really know what you're doing when it comes to technology, okay? But you don't know anything about accounting. They know things that they could call you stupid in." But he would say this, and I would have to have discussions with him. But he was a pretty good technician. He knew how to solve problems. He knew how to troubleshoot. Now, I taught him all this, okay? I taught him not only personally, but I sent him to school, and I had other employees work with him. But he worked for me for about 10 years. And he comes to me and he says, "Jim, I decided I need to quit." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." Because he was basically an honest guy. He showed up at work on time. I could trust him to drive my trucks. But he says, "I'm going to quit." And I said, "Why? I'm curious." And he said, "Because I want to start my own company." And I said, "Oh, are you sure about that? You want to do that?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm positive. I want to start my own company." I said, "Fantastic. That's great. If you like, I could give you some advice. I could work with you and help you establish your company." And he looked at me and he said, "What makes you think that I'd be interested in your advice?" I thought, wow, that was pretty arrogant. He was an arrogant guy, to be honest with you. And I said, "Okay, I'm not going to push my ideas on you, but I want to ask you a couple questions. You're going to go full tilt into this, right?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you have any customers?" He goes, "I'll get them. My father-in-law and I talked about this, and he told me, every day you go out, you work for this other guy, and he collects the checks, and he's getting wealthy, but you're not. You're getting paid this dollar amount per hour." And he says, "You're smart enough, you could start your own company. Don't listen to people who have never ran a company before, okay? Don't listen to them because they don't know what they're talking about." In this case, I said, "Okay." I said, "But let me give you some suggestions anyway." I said, "How about if I work with you? How about if you start with 4 days a week? You still have your health insurance. You still have a job. You still have retirement. You work for me for 4 days. You work for yourself 1 day a week so you can gather enough customers to support you for 2 days a week. And I'll give you flexible hours." And I thought that was pretty generous. He just laughed at me and he said, "No, I don't need you. I don't want you." He goes, "I'm just going to go full turkey. And that full turkey is going to work for me." He goes, "I believe in a commitment. I have a passion." And I said, "Okay, that's fine. Thank you for giving me a month's notice." And so he went his way. And I remember seeing him about a week after he started his business, ran into him, and I said, "Hey, how are things going?" He goes, "Look at my beautiful truck. I have this big, beautiful truck." I don't know what it cost him, but it's a very top-of-the-line truck. It was really nice. I don't have trucks like that. Or at least back then I didn't have a truck like that. But he was very proud of his truck, and I said, "How are you doing?" And he says, "I'm starting. It's a little rough at the beginning. I'm going to push through and I'm going to start my business." Now, his business did not succeed. It failed pretty quick. And I wish I could have helped him because he was basically a good guy. A little arrogant, as I said before, but basically a good guy. And I wish I could have helped him, but he refused my help. Now, that was one. And just because you refuse my help doesn't mean that you can't start and be successful in the business. That's not the issue. So we're going to talk about what the issue is. But the second tech guy, he was a great guy. I really liked him. He was my Cisco technician, and that guy was really good with Cisco software. But I noticed that he was always positive, and he was great with customers. He liked customers. He actually liked customers. And he would talk to them and explain things to them nicely. And it was just a joy to work with him. He was a smart guy. But he decided he'd go into business, and his first business he didn't do that great in. His second business, however, he did fantastic. He's making millions of dollars. He's at the point where he wants to buy the manufacturer of the equipment he uses, not Cisco. He's on some other equipment now. He's that good. But I also remember him of asking questions all the time. How do you do this? How do you do that? And sometimes they were business questions. What is the issue in business today in this area? He'd ask me that. Now, he was a pretty young guy. He was younger than the first dude. But he became very successful because he had a different attitude. Now, I'm not just saying he wasn't arrogant, but he had a different attitude. I remember a technician came to me and he handed me the check that I asked him to pick up for the work that needed to be done. And he picked up the check and then he held up the check like this and he's looking at it. And he said, "Man, I worked 2 hours and you got $1,000 check." And he said, "Yeah, you worked 2 hours and my company got $1,000 check. Not me personally. My company got $1,000. But out of that, okay, about 90% of it is parts and equipment, 80, 90%. And I said, then I have to pay you. And I got payroll service I have to pay. And I got an accountant that has to keep track of it. I got to make sure you get paid at the end of the week. Not only that, you have benefits and you have taxes that I have to turn in. Plus, I got to train you. So you get paid before me. I have to pay my supplier for the equipment. I have to pay the salesman for the sale. And then I get to pay you as a technician for what you did. And then if there's anything left, the company gets it. And let me tell you, a lot of times there wasn't anything left. But he was indignant that he collected a check and it was $1,000. Now the figures I'm using are probably not the actual figures because I don't actually remember how much it was for what he did, but he was one that just felt like he was being used, that this wasn't fair, that he doesn't make this money and here's the company making all this money. He also started a business, so it's more than two people I'm talking about today. He also started a business, and the last I heard, wasn't doing that good. It was still around, I was surprised, but it wasn't doing that good, and he's not in IT anymore. So some people start businesses, and some people fail. And there's a story that I always ask is, why do you start a business without any knowledge? Do you think just because you're a technician that somehow you can run a business? I don't want to be offensive, okay? Don't take this as an offense. Take this as someone who has made lots of mistakes and he's trying to tell you about scar tissue. That's what I call mistakes. That's what I call wisdom. Don't do it this way because I did it that way and I failed big time, cost lots of money. So I'm going to save you lots of money. You do it this way. That's the type of attitude that I have. I'm trying to save you. Some people should not be in business. They're not entrepreneurs. They're not thinking like entrepreneurs. Like the first person, he really did not like customers. Why would you go into business if you don't like customers? And secondly, his purpose of going to business is his father-in-law, who never had a business in his life, thought you're collecting all this money for the business, but they're only paying you X amount of dollars per hour. That doesn't sound fair. You're smart. You seem to be doing all the work, and that guy's not doing anything. That type of father-in-law, relative, brother, or whatever else you have, don't pay attention to them. There's a lot more in business than the technology. And that's the point I'm trying to stress today. Now, there is an interesting book by Michael Gruber. It's really interesting because Michael Gruber lives in the next town, 10 miles from here, 15 miles from where I'm at. And I've never ran into him, but he has one of the best books on starting a business. It's called The E-Myth Revisited. And the E is for entrepreneurial, entrepreneur, I don't know. It's the idea that you think because you're a technician, you think because you're an expert in your area, you think because you can do wonderful things, that therefore you could go in business next week. And when you go in business next week, that you're going to be fabulously wealthy and people are going to clap when you come through the door and the money's just going to come down over top of you and things like that. And life is going to be easy. And what he shows in his book, and a lot better than I'm explaining now, I'm going to be honest with you because this is a great book, is that that's not necessarily the case. It's really good. You got to read it. It's The E-Myth Revisited, Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work and What to Do About It. So if you're thinking about starting a business, you got to read this book along with some other books, okay? Slow down there, cowboy, okay? Because there's a lot more involved than just you being a technician, okay? You're going to fail, and it's going to be expensive, and your wife is going to hate you, okay? Well, maybe not that. Maybe she'll stand beside you, but it's going to be a life-altering experience if you take all your money, like my first technician did, and then lose it all because you don't have health insurance for your kids, because you don't have a steady job, because it goes up one week and then it goes crashing down the next week, and you spent all the money when it was going up, but you don't know anything about money management, and pretty soon you're bankrupt, okay? So there's a lot more going on that I can even talk about in this video, and if you like, just ask questions in the comments section, and maybe I can answer some of those things. It's hard to answer one or two sentences to a complex question, but ask if you want me to do more on this area about starting a business and what you need to know, some of the other areas you need to know. But in the book, it's really good because he tells things and he talks about things in such a way, there's stories in here. He talks about stories. And he obviously really knows what he's talking about. And he's a great author, one of the best books on business that I've ever read. Now, it's not one of those flowery books that's going to make you feel so good. Follow your passion. You follow your passion, most likely you're going to fail. Okay? It's not about passion. It's about having a plan. It's about working your plan. It's about having a purpose. It's about having certain goals. If your goal is just to get that check from that customer and so you can go home on a Friday night and drink a beer, I'll tell you, you're going to fail at the business. So he talks about one person in here is really interesting, about a baker. And she's a great baker. She can really bake pies like no one else. And this is how I remember this book. She can bake pies like no one else. And everyone in her family says, you need to go in business for yourself. This is dangerous when you have people telling you that without facts, without them actually being in business in their life. So you can go in business for yourself and you'll be successful. You'll be a billionaire by the time you're 30. I've heard things similar to that. Maybe not billionaire, but I've heard things similar to that. Anyway, she bought this little suite in the building, had a really nice name on the window and above the building. And she had cash registers. She had this big oven that was top of the line oven that she was making payments on, things like that. And then she found out that she'd be starting at about 4 o'clock in the morning baking. And then by 9 o'clock at night when the store closed, she had to do the accounting. And she had to clean the shop. And she had to do this. And she's crying in the interview with Michael Gruber about her life. And she didn't know how to start a business. I don't remember now. It's been like a while since I read this book, but I got to read it again because it's just so good. It's so entertaining. It's worth 10 times what you're going to pay for this book. And by the way, I'm not sponsored. I not met Michael Gruber, but this is a brilliant book. Now, the question is, if you're going to start a business, if you're persistent and you say, yeah, I'm going to start this business because I had this thing that I had to be in business. I'm an entrepreneur. My uncle tells me. No. Let's say I have not convinced you of the stupidity of that argument, okay? What I hope I convince you, if you're still persistent on that you want to start a business, then what I would say is, start to read books like this. Read that book. There's 5 or 6 other books I would read. I picked up my Audible account because I'm always reading about business because I love being in business and I love customers and I love serving customers and I'm making money. But that's not my only purpose. I just feel that this is part of my life. I got to be in business. It's those people who play musical instruments, they got to play that musical instrument. And who like baking, they got to bake. Or how about this? How about you just love football? I don't watch football. It's not even interesting to me. Neither is basketball. What's interesting to me is business. I love business. I love being in business. But let me show you some of the books. Millionaire Fastlane. That is a fantastic book. And I'm going to talk about it in the future. You're going to learn a lot from that. But these are the books you need to learn. You know, I'm looking at some other books like I just read, Buy, Then Build, HBR Guide to Buying a Small Business, because I'm looking at buying businesses. The Richest Man in Babylon. You can learn a lot from The Richest Man in Babylon book. That's an old book, but it's really good. Anything by Ramsey, Dave Ramsey. He not only talks about personal finance, but you can apply a lot of that to business too. This guy is really good if you'd listen to him, if you would use his approaches to things. And then there's some technical ones, Tax-Free Wealth, Start Your Own Corporation, the Lean Startup. Lean Startup is fantastic. You should read that book. You should be reading these books all the time, all the time. You know what I do? I got to go to the dentist to scrape off the tartar on my teeth and all boring stuff, but it has to happen. So I go to that. But what I do is I bring my cell phone with my earplugs and I listen to a book. Yes, while they're scraping my teeth or they're waiting for me to see the dentist. Entree Leadership is really a good one from Dave Ramsey. It's always like that. And there's just a ton of business books out there. Most of them, a lot of them, you can get for free on YouTube. Study. One of the things I did when I first started serious about business, not just selling tadpoles and other things, like I used to take pennies and I would put them on the curb in my house there in Philly when I was a little kid, like 10 years old, and I would smash them with a ball-peen hammer, then I'd spray them gold and sell them to the kids at my school for gold and silver pieces from pirates. And I made a ton of money doing that, by the way. That was my investment, a penny, and I'd get 35 cents back. And I remember 35 cents because the 35 cents is what you had to take to get the lunch. I disrupted lunch many times by my little business things. But you don't have to be like me. You don't have to be exactly like me or things like that. You just have to have curiosity about how come some people succeed and some people fail. This has nothing to do with the person that worked for me, but I do remember the story where someone got a $200,000 or $300,000 to start a business, and they invested in his business type of thing, and they gave him the money and allowed him to manage the money. First thing he did is he went out and bought a bunch of brand new trucks. Filled the trucks full of stuff. He signed leases on the warehouse and filled the warehouse with all the parts and everything else. And then they partied at the end of the party, and there was no customers. See, customers are the key to success. It's not how smart you are as an entrepreneur. It's your customers. It's your business system. It's not only taking the customer and serving that need to a customer, but it's also making sure that you do it in such a way that it's profitable. You got to have a profit. Profits aren't evil. They are good things. You got to have a profit. And when everything's said and done, you got to make money at this. And you got to pay your taxes. And then you got to pay your bills. And you got to plan. You don't do this one-man job type of thing. That's okay at the very beginning. Okay, you're a technician. You're the expert in this area. The other people aren't. You're going to be training them. I trained over 200 people, at least 200 people on IT, networking, local area networks, how to put them together, how to manage them, how to design it, how to bid jobs, cabling jobs, big cabling jobs. I can tell you a couple of stories about that, but that's not for today. Please get this book. Again, this is not sponsored. This is just my opinion. There's a lot of really good business books out there. Now, I'm talking to you as a person that has a master's in business administration. I tell you, I didn't learn anything about business at the level that I learned it. It was not sitting there going through a university with an MBA. That wasn't it. It wasn't. Now, there were some good professors there, learned a little bit about the stock market, things like that, and investing. But where I really learned how to run a business is Marine Corps. That taught me how to handle people. And then running a business was the best MBA of all. So you don't have to have a master's degree or a college degree or anything else. Just one last thing. I hear some politicians, now they're going to get a little political here, and they say certain things. Like I heard one politician that say, prices are going up, but I hope the company they don't have to pass it on. Shows me that some politicians don't understand business at all, and they're actually out and end up hurting businesses because of their lack of knowledge, experience, just not understanding anything about business. They make decisions that don't benefit the people and at the same time really hurt people rather than benefit them. But it sounds good. Hey, at any rate, thank you for watching my video today. Very much appreciate it. Please subscribe. I need more subscribers. I need more thumbs up. I need more comments. If you thought this video was really worthwhile to you, you also have super thanks. Put something in super thanks to help me out, because this takes hours and hours to do, even a short video, because it has to be edited, things like that. I don't want to complain. I enjoy doing this. It's not a problem. I do consulting. People ask me different things, especially IT companies will pay me to consult because I've been doing this for decades. It's a sad story, isn't it? Been doing it for decades. Woo. At any rate, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you decide to go into business and succeed, please make a comment. Make a comment. Tell other people about the video, about the channel, and I hope you have a wonderful day.